cheated on Roy with Jim, got pregnant, and married Jim. But now I want Roy back. Am I crazy? Warning, this story will be unsettling to those who tried monkey branching and miserably failed. Hello there. I wanted to tell my story to potentially help other women and to ask suggestions that might help me move forward. I'm in the final stages of divorcing my husband of 9 years. Call him Jim, a 34-year-old male. For this story, call me Pam, 28 female. We have 2 daughters, ages 8 and 7. I married Jim 3 months after we met, and we had our first daughter 6 months later. I came to realize, shortly after we married, that our relationship was one of misplaced lust that quickly disappeared after the realities of marriage and children set in. As I look back on it now, marrying Jim was a mistake. Except for our 2 beautiful daughters, I realized the love of my life was actually Roy. Roy is now 28 years old. Roy was mine. All mine at one time, but I drove him away. Here's my backstory. Roy and I went to school together and started officially dating when we were 16. We were good friends since kindergarten and officially became a couple at the age of 16 after going to a dance together. From that point until we broke up 3 years later, we were inseparable and were deep in love. Roy was my first everything. And I mean everything. My everything until I was intoxicated by a burst of brief yet irresistible lust. It all happened in the waiting room of a tire store back in July of 2012, Monday, July 16th to be exact. It was there I met Jim. I was getting new front tires for my car, and Jim was there getting new tires for his pickup. It was just he and I in the waiting room area, and we sat across from each other. At first, we just ignored each other. Then Jim spoke up and said, "Excuse me, I'd like to introduce myself." After the introductions, he said, "Forgive me for saying this, but you're the most beautiful thing I've ever laid eyes on." This made me blush and gave me goosebumps. Hearing him say that made my spine tingle from the top of my neck all the way down to the base of my back. We talked nonstop from that point until his truck was done. Before leaving, he asked me if I was single. I told him, yes, I'm just dating at the moment. With that, he asked me out the following night, and I accepted. The next evening, I drove to his place, and we went out for pizza at a local shop around the corner from his apartment. I had never been to this shop before, but my boyfriend Roy had gotten pizza there several times in the past. When we finished eating, we walked back to his apartment. It was on the 2nd floor of a garage, in an alley behind his landlord's house. He invited me up, and I accepted. I knew what I was doing, and what I was about to do was wrong. But I couldn't resist the temptation. When we got upstairs, I think we said maybe 3 words and our clothes came off. We spent the next 2 hours in his bed. Looking back, I don't know why I did it. Not to knock Jim, but he was a notch below Roy in terms of looks, intelligence, future earnings, and even bedroom skills. I felt no love for him. However, I couldn't resist the lure of being with another man. This happened on Tuesday, and for the next 2 nights, we repeated the same, except we skipped dinner and just went straight to his place. During the times Jim and I were together, Roy was busy taking evening classes, working towards his bachelor's. Since Jim lived in the next town over, I foolishly thought I could juggle this situationship I was in. Bruh. You can call it the affair with Jim, along with my relationship with Roy. That didn't happen, though. After our Thursday meeting, Jim convinced me to join him for a shake at a local dairy barn. The establishment is very popular and has a large parking lot that is always full of cars, motorcycles, and classic car owners on warm summer evenings. It's a really busy place. Jim and I got shakes and sat at the picnic tables for 45 minutes or so, and then got in his truck to leave. As we were waiting in line to exit the parking lot, Roy and two of his college friends exited a car right beside us and began walking towards the restaurant and right past Jim's truck. I didn't see Roy when he exited the car, as Jim and I were kissing at the time. When I pulled back from the kiss into the passenger seat, I looked out the open passenger window and straight at Roy. The empty look on his face is something I will never forget. He just slowly called my name. I was so nervous and shocked, I just laughed and turned to look at Jim. Ugh, I know to Roy he probably viewed it as me, laughing in his face, but I wasn't. It was just a nervous reaction. Jim didn't hear Roy call my name and pulled forward, then exited the parking lot. Within a minute, I was getting calls from Roy, and I turned off my phone. When I went back to Jim's place, I kissed him goodbye and then walked to my own car. I turned my phone back on and had multiple voicemails and texts from Roy. I texted him and said, "Let's talk tomorrow." He insisted we talk right then. He called me and I answered, "This is where I made a terrible mistake." Instead of being apologetic and contrite, I instead was dismissive and angry. I know it's really bad, but what can I say? I was young and stupid. Roy asked me what was going on, and I told him I was just out with a new friend. Roy said, "I saw you kiss the guy. He's more than a friend." He asked if I had slept with him, and I said, "It's none of your business." Roy just said, "It's none of my business? Okay," and ended the call. When I got home, my mom asked me where I was and where Roy was. I told her I was just out with a friend, and Roy was out with his friends. She asked, "Roy wasn't with you?" I made up some excuse and then went to take a shower before getting in bed. In the shower, the reality of what I'd done hit me like an asteroid. I realized that I had likely just destroyed my relationship with Roy. I tried calling and texting him, telling him I was sorry, but he didn't respond. That night, I slept very little, and the next day, I set out to find Roy. Normally, he's at home studying on Friday morning, but he wasn't there. I looked for him all day, along with numerous calls and texts, with no response. Friday evening, I called Roy's mom. She answered, and I asked if she knew where Roy was. She just said he was out with friends and thought I was with him. I told her I wasn't, and she seemed surprised. I didn't get into what was going on, and just asked her to have him call me when he gets home, and she said she would. Roy never contacted me, and I didn't sleep at all on that night. On Saturday morning, I headed over to Roy's house at 8:30 a.m. His mom has a tradition of cooking breakfast for their entire family at 7 a.m. every Saturday, and I attended these Saturday breakfasts for the last 3 years. I didn't want to show up and cause a scene, so I waited an hour or so until after the breakfast. When I arrived at Roy's house, I saw all the cars from his family in the driveway and on the street. Since they treated me as part of the family, I normally just walked in. But when I tried the door handle, it was locked. I knocked on the door and heard rumbling from inside and saw the curtain move. Then Roy's mom opened the door while I held the screen door open. I assumed she was going to welcome me in, but instead she moved forward and came out on the porch, and closed the door behind her. She asked me, "What are you doing here, Pam?" I said I was there to see Roy. She told me, "He doesn't want to see you now." I told her I need to see him, to tell him I'm sorry and how much I love him.
Okay.
With that, she gave me a mean look and said, "That's not a good idea. I think you should leave, now." I couldn't believe she was treating me like that, as I viewed her as my second mother and we have such a good relationship. With that, she just turned around and went back into the house, and I ran to my car crying. Roy called me an hour later and we talked. I wanted to talk in person, but he declined and told me to tell him the truth, and I did. I told him everything: how I met Jim, how many times I was with him, and what we did. I tried explaining that it meant nothing to me. I told him that I love him and only him and always will. I told him the truth, that I made this mistake because I liked experiencing what it would be like to be with another man.
Oh my God!
And this is what overtook me, and I temporarily lost control of my senses. I said I'd never do something like that again, and would be faithful to him forever. To make a long story short, Roy broke up with me over the phone, 3 years down the drain. Just like that. He didn't fight for me. He just ended it, without remorse. I told him I was not going to give up and that I would fight for us. He just told me not to waste my time. Later that day, I spoke with Jim and put our relationship on ice, and for the next 3 weeks tried everything to win Roy back. During this time, Jim was doing the same with me. He was relentless in his pursuit and expressed his love for me multiple times. But then it happened. Everything came to a head on August 19th of 2012, when I missed my period. I did a pregnancy test a week later, and it was positive. I did a second test a few days later, and it too was positive. I was pregnant with Jim's baby. How did I know? Roy used protection, and Jim didn't. I called Roy and left him a message, informing him I was pregnant. In the message, I told him we really needed to talk, as I was unsure what to do. Yes, as I look back on this, it was a terrible thing for me to do. Roy never replied and just avoided me, as did his family. So eventually, I told my mom about my situation. She became very angry with me. She loved Roy like a son and couldn't believe I'd cheat on him and get pregnant. Mom raised me single-handedly, as my dad left 3 months after I was born and never returned. He passed away a few years ago. I met him one time about a few months prior to his passing when he requested to see me to apologize. Over the years, Mom preached to me that she didn't want me to repeat her mistake and to find a quality man and do things traditionally. Mom insisted on meeting Jim. I told her I was no longer seeing him and never wanted to see him again. I then told Mom that I didn't want to go through with the pregnancy and just wanted to put this whole thing behind me. God, she screamed at me so hard and yelled she cannot do that and she won't let me make more bad decisions. She said if I didn't want the baby, she'd adopt it and raise it herself. After much discussion, she convinced me to meet with Jim and tell him about the pregnancy. Later that afternoon, Jim came to our house and I told him with Mom by my side. He didn't react like I expected. Instead, he started jumping around and screaming with joy. He picked me up and kissed me, and then kissed and hugged my mom. Needless to say, Mom immediately liked him. He then asked me to marry him right there in front of my mom. His reaction shouldn't have surprised me, as this is his personality. To speed things up, we were married 3 months later, and our first daughter was born 6 months after. Mom grew to love Jim as he is an amazing father, husband, and son-in-law. The problem is, I didn't love Jim in a romantic sense. I was still in love with Roy. The initial lust I felt for Jim quickly evaporated after I became pregnant. I had no passionate love for him, just the feeling of obligation, because I was about to have a child with him. He was such a great father, I thought having a second child would make me grow to love him. So we did, but it didn't. I felt just the same. I wanted so much to love him that way, but I just didn't and couldn't. We both are great parents, and I do love Jim very much, but not as a husband lover, more as a father figure in life. It's been like this for the entire 9 years we've been married. I've kept it buried deep inside, but about a year ago, I confessed this to Jim, and it just broke his heart. He thought I was happy like he was. When I told him I wasn't, he just broke down. Again, he's been a loyal, loving husband and a wonderful, the best father. But I just have no spark with him. I don't know exactly why that is. One thing, he's not ambitious from a career standpoint. He loves his job, works hard, and is a good provider, but he hasn't done anything to advance. He says he loves his job just as it is, as it gives him the perfect work-life balance. The other thing, he's not adventurous. He just loves spending time as a family, which I do too. But I'd like more excitement in my life. I know I always benchmark him against Roy, which isn't fair. I still follow Roy's life on social media. He's still not married, but dates a lot of women. He's now a VP at the financial firm where he works. He's also constantly traveling and hiking. Just last year, he was in Italy, Africa, and even went up to the Arctic Circle. He's very athletic and is in better shape now than he was when we were together. Jim, not so much. Family life has made him somewhat lazy when it comes to exercise, and his food choices are not great for a man of his age. As such, he's put on quite a bit of weight around his midsection. He's not obese in any way, but I would say he's definitely rocking a dad bod. I don't mind it, but I just wish he'd do more to stay in shape and improve his health. I know these are not deal-breaker issues, but they all add up. And bottom line, I'm just not happy. So long story short, I've decided to divorce. Jim fought hard to prevent this, but eventually he just gave up last month and accepted it. We agreed to part amicably and are going to be terrific co-parents. I'm actually very excited about the potential of starting anew and finding true love. I'm still young enough to have 1 or 2, maybe 3 additional children, and would like to find a man who's willing to build a beautiful life and family with me. I know he's out there, but as long as I stay married, I'll never find him. My mom and my entire family are totally against what I'm doing, as are all my friends. They love Jim and think he's a great guy, which he is. It's just that we're not made for each other beyond being parents. Please let me know what you think of my situation. I plan to read all of the responses and just may reply to you if you're lucky. Thank you, Pam.
Royal A.I.
Where do I begin? You are the most selfish and self-centered person I've ever seen on here. Good God, woman. Your husband sounds like a gem. Most women would give anything to have a loyal, hard-working husband who loves them unconditionally and is a great father. What more do you want? Money doesn't buy happiness, nor does traveling. Grow up.
The way I see it, women like you should come with a warning label. In your post, you write about how you totally crush the souls of 2 men and have no remorse for doing so. With you, it's all about me, 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 and me. I'm glad Jim agreed to divorce you. I hope he eventually finds a good woman who is worthy of his love and forgets you ever existed.
Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I once felt like you and divorced my husband of 6 years when I was 28. That was 23 years ago, and I've never remarried and never had any children. Every day I regret leaving him. I mean every day from the time I wake to the time I go to bed. Fix what's wrong with you. Get counseling, and I'm sure you'll come to appreciate what you've got. Or you will be doomed.
Sorry for the delay in responding. I am officially divorced. Jim and I are still best friends and have 50-50 custody. I kept the house, and the kids primarily stay with me. But Jim is free to come over whenever he wants. Nothing has really changed from that standpoint. And our girls are happy. They still see their daddy every day. I'm now about to embark on my next chapter, and I'm super excited. I read and appreciate all the responses to my original post, but I have to disagree with most of you. Yes, Jim is a wonderful man. He's the best, but he's just not right for me. I had to do this for myself, or I'd end up at 60 years old looking back at my life and kicking myself for not taking the chance to find true happiness. I've gotten strength from reading success stories from women who've done what I'm doing, with successful outcomes. Some never found another life partner, but all of them found happiness and fulfillment. I'm going to do the same. My first plan of action is to launch a Hail Mary and contact Roy, to let him know I'm free, and see if he may be interested in rekindling our relationship. He has a hiking blog on Facebook with over 1,300 members. All of his contact information is listed there, including his email. So I plan to send him a detailed message, expressing my feelings, and see what I get back. As I stated in my original post, Roy is the true love of my life, and if things were to work out for us a second time, it would be like a fairy tale come true. Wish me luck, Pam. My outreach to Roy did not go well. He did respond, but basically told me in so many words, "Thanks, but no thanks. Now get lost." My heartfelt email to him was over 14,000 characters, and I poured my heart out. Meanwhile, his response back to me was a short, cold note, starting it by calling me by Jim's last name. Let's call it Blank. Now, here's his message.
Dear Mrs. Blank, thank you for your detailed message. I'm sorry to hear about your divorce. While I have no interest in meeting with you and re-establishing a friendship, I do, however, wish you, your husband, and your children a life of health, happiness, and fulfillment. Sincerely.
And he puts his last name instead of Roy. Seriously? Why the arm's distance? Like he doesn't even know me. He's responding like I'm some general inquiry to his hiking blog. Ugh. Unbelievable. It took me 2 full weeks to get over Roy's response, but now I'm at peace with it and realize he's gone from my life forever. I'm now concentrating on finding a new love, but I'm having difficulty finding serious men. A friend fixed me up with her cousin who's also divorced, but there was absolutely no chemistry. I've also set up a couple dating profiles on dating sites. Right after setting up the profiles, I received 97 likes, and things looked promising. However, none of these men were serious about dating and relationships. Basically, all of them were looking for a hookup or a friends with benefits partner. What, seriously? Even though I specified I was only interested in a serious relationship, there were 3 men so far that seemed sincere, and I met each of them for a drink. On the phone, these guys said they wanted a relationship and were fine with dating a woman with kids. Then, when I met them in person, it turns out each of them were not serious at all and were just looking to score. What's wrong with men today? What am I doing wrong? Where should I go to meet quality men? I've tried church, coffee shops, the library, and even bars, but nothing. The only sincere approaches I've gotten have been from older men, but I preferably want someone my age, up to 40 maximum. When I'm out shopping, I'm always on the lookout for a sweet guy, but still nothing. Help me. I'm starting to think there's something wrong with me. Thanks in advance for your replies. Pam.
My advice to you is to get on your knees with hat in hand and beg your husband to take you back. What high-value man is going to want a woman with 2 young children from another man who also happens to be a cheater? You need to act fast, as your husband is truly of higher value, and I predict he will not be single for long.
All divorced women with kids on dating sites eventually end up settling for a friends with benefits arrangement. Many just start having random hookups out of sheer loneliness. You've got to understand that no matter how hot you think you are hot for one thing only. And it's not for a serious relationship, and definitely not marriage. If you keep sticking your head in the sand, you will soon find this out.
You'll never find another man like your husband. I don't care where you look or how many dates you go on. I still don't understand why you left him. Everything you listed out makes no sense. Also, you say you love him, but not romantically. Yet your relationship began with a lust-filled affair. Come on now. I predict within 6 months, you'll be begging him to take you back.
Where do I begin? As many of you predicted, I got a rude awakening entering today's modern dating world as a 29-year-old single mother of 2. There are no men out there who are looking for a serious relationship. At least, I haven't found any. Have men always been like this, or have things just gotten so bad in society? This casual stuff is just not healthy. Right after my divorce last October, I had so much hope and promise for the future, but that quickly disappeared as I went through the holidays, without Jim as a family. I started feeling depressed on New Year's Eve, as I spent the night alone with my daughters. While I loved being with them and we had fun together, it was then I started missing my husband, really bad. I mean, really bad. I got through it and moved on. I was doing fine, until Valentine's Day, when the feeling returned even stronger than on New Year's Eve. Then this past Saturday, reality hit me hard and woke me up. I now know who I am meant to be with, and what I have to do. One of my male cousins got married on Saturday, and I, along with my husband, was invited. My cousin is good friends with Jim. He told me he was inviting Jim and a guest, and I had no problem with that. The day before the wedding, Jim called to tell me he would be bringing a date to the wedding. He said he had been dating a woman for the last 6 weeks, and our daughters already met her, and they all get along well. I was shocked by this, as my daughters never said anything to me. I asked if he told them to keep this from me, and he said, "Of course not. They probably didn't think anything of it." When I asked him who it was, he told me her name. Again, I was surprised, even more so than before. Not trying to be mean or anything. But hear me out. This woman is a tomboy type who works as a manager at our local Wally World. And you know what Wally World is, right? Everybody shops there at Walmart. I don't know her personally, but she is always friendly and outgoing when I've seen her at the store. A friend of mine is friends with her sister, so I called my friend to talk about this situation. My friend said she wasn't aware that Jim was dating her, but gossipy asked if I'd seen her lately. I said no, and she proceeded to tell me that she looks completely different now. She's changed her hairstyle, wears makeup, and now wears dresses and only feminine outfits. She said she is absolutely beautiful and now revels in the feminine. Saturday came, and Jim didn't attend the church ceremony, but he and his new girlfriend came to the reception. When they came in, they sat across the dance floor from us. He walked over to kiss our daughters and say hello to me, my mom, and my extended family. When he turned to walk back to rejoin his girlfriend, it was then that I realized what a big mistake I made divorcing him. I also realized that I may have lost him forever. After eating dinner, my girls joined Jim and his girlfriend, as our plan was for them to eat dinner with me and then to eat cake and dance with their dad. Jim, with his girlfriend and my daughter, spent the entire night dancing. They never sat out one song. One thing I noticed is Jim never looked my way through the entire reception. He didn't care about me at all. That night, when I got home and put the girls to bed, I stayed up reliving the night and thinking about the last 9 years. I came to the realization again that it was Jim, who was truly the love of my life. Not Roy or anyone else. It was so clear to me. I took Jim for granted and didn't appreciate the beautiful thing we had until he was gone. I know now I must do everything to win back his love and trust. When he comes over to pick up the girls on Monday evening, I'm going to talk with him about getting back together. I'm going to let him know I'm ready now. I plan on telling him how much I love him and will ask him to move back in with us as a family. My girls will be so happy. I don't care if we get remarried. I just want to be his partner for life and have more children with him. I know I've been all over the place with my feelings in these posts, but I'm 100% sure who and what I want now. I'm sending out thanks to all of you for your replies, your words of encouragement, also the many kicks to get me thinking right. I really needed that. And you were right. Stay well, everyone. Best to you. Pam.
Roy, you nailed it. 3 years with this girl, always protected, and you still bagged a degree. But after 3 years, her true colors flashed, and you wisely hit the eject button. High five for dodging that bullet and living your best life. Now, let's talk Jim. This guy was too trusting and ignored the red flags. Sounds like a great guy, but wow, he went in too deep and fast. He met a girl, skipped the protection, and boom, she's pregnant. Then he marries her before even meeting her mom properly. Seriously, Jim? But gotta give it to him, though. Jim's got his act together now. Great dad, hardworking, and thriving. But buddy, steer clear of the ex. She's got her sights on you and won't take no for an answer. Remember what happens when Mr. More Attractive or Richer strolls by? She'll monkey branch faster than you can blink. Pam, you need help.
What would you advise OP? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to smack the like button, and if you have a story you're willing to share, email it to contactroyalai@gmail.com. See you in the next one.